Welcome back. Today I want to do something a little different. Most weeks we spend our time talking about training, policies, real-world incidents, or lessons that churches can learn from events around the country. But today I want to talk about something more personal. I want to talk about how church safety has changed me.
If God is for me, who's against me? Nobody is. I'm so sick of the...
Welcome to Sanctuary Peacemakers. This is your frontline guide to safety and security inside houses of worship with your host, Unity. Now, let's enter the crucible of our discussion. Welcome back to Sanctuary Peacemakers. Before we get started, make sure you're following the podcast for new episodes every Thursday. If this episode is helpful, leave a comment, rating, or review, and share it with someone involved in church safety ministry. When I first joined this church safety ministry several years ago, I thought I already understood what the job was. After all, I worked in security professionally. Observation, patrols, dealing with difficult people, recognizing suspicious behavior, and responding to emergencies were already part of my daily life. So when I joined a church safety team, I naturally assumed I would be doing the same thing in a different setting. In my mind, church safety was mostly about security. I thought our primary focus should be identifying potential threats and stopping bad things from happening. Medical emergencies, fire safety, weather emergencies, and helping people were important, but if I'm being honest, they felt more like secondary responsibilities. Looking back now, I realize how narrow that view really was. Church safety certainly is about protecting people from violence when necessary. We cannot ignore that reality. But over the years, I have learned that violence is only a small part of what we prepare for. More often than not, what we actually do is serve people. Sometimes that means helping someone who is having a medical emergency, or calming an emotional situation before it grows into something bigger. Sometimes it means helping a lost child find their parents, or maybe simply being available when someone needs to talk because they don't know who else they can trust. The ministry part of church safety took me longer to understand than the security part. There was another moment that completely changed the way I looked at this responsibility. Many of you know about the attempted mass shooting at Crosspointe Community Church in Wayne, Michigan. Whenever I talk about that incident, I want to be careful to clarify something. It did not happen at my church. It happened at Crosspointe Church, which is about 2.5 miles from where I live. But before that day, I think I looked at incidents the same way many people do. You hear about tragedies happening in other states and other cities and other churches. You tell yourself, that's terrible. You pray for the people involved. Then life goes on because in the back of your mind, it still feels like something that happens somewhere else. Crosspointe changed that. It reminded me that somewhere else can be just a couple of miles away. The day it happened, I was actually at my own church. It was a special morning because I was at the front of the sanctuary becoming an official member of the church. While all that was happening, one of my co-leaders quietly walked over and whispered in my ear there had been a shooting at Crosspointe. At that moment, we didn't know very much. We didn't know if it was isolated or coordinated. We didn't know if another church could be targeted or if we would be next. People sometimes ask me if I was scared. Honestly, fear isn't what I remember most. What I remember is focus. Everything became incredibly clear. My mind immediately shifted to gathering information, communicating with the rest of the team, and preparing for the possibility that whatever was happening a couple miles away might spill over into our church. That experience taught me something important about training. Good training doesn't eliminate fear. Good training gives you something to fall back on when everything suddenly changes. It allows your mind to move toward the problem instead of freezing because it has no idea what to do. And I'm sure Jay would agree with me, the safety officer over at Crosspointe. Thankfully, nothing happened at our church that morning. The Crosspointe incident turned out to be isolated, but my perspective never returned to what it had been before. A few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to teach a church safety class at Crosspointe. After the training, Jay walked me through the areas the incident happened and showed me where the shooter came onto the property and where the confrontation occurred. He showed me chips in the that were visible in the brick from where the bullets had struck the wall. Then I saw something else. The team member who was shot that day is still using crutches more than a year later. Standing there, it hit me that the incident lasted only minutes. The recovery lasted much longer. Sometimes we read about an incident or watch a news story and move on because another story replaces it. The people who lived through it don't get to move on that quickly. They continue living with surgeries and rehabilitation, emotional recovery, memories, and reminders that remain long after the cameras leave. That experience reinforced something else I've come to believe. Church safety isn't ultimately about preparing for the worst days. It's about caring for the people before, during, and after that day ever comes. Over the years, my role has changed in another way, too. Every Sunday, I sit just outside our sanctuary. One eye is on the cameras, the other is on the pastor. Some people might wonder if it makes worship difficult. Sometimes it does. There have been Sundays when I needed to step away from my responsibilities for a little while so I could simply sit in the congregation and worship without watching cameras or thinking about exits and entrances. If one of my own team members ever needed that, I would gladly make the same accommodation for them. People serving on safety ministries need spiritual care too. We're not machines. We're church members before we're safety volunteers. Serving on the team has also changed how I see the congregation. I know more people than I used to because the role naturally puts me in contact with individuals I may never have met otherwise. But more importantly, I've realized something I wish every church member understood. We're here for you. Not just when something goes wrong, always. If something is happening in your life that could create a safety concern, I hope you know you can come to us. Maybe you're dealing with an abusive former spouse, or maybe you've been threatened, or somebody's stalking you. Maybe there's another situation you're worried could spill into the church. You don't have to carry that alone. Our goal is not to judge you. Our goal is not to spread your personal business all around the church. Our goal is to help protect you and protect everyone around you. If additional help is needed from church leadership or law enforcement, we'll involve the appropriate people, but that starts with someone being willing to tell us what's going on. That's one of the biggest lessons church safety has taught me. We're not just protecting buildings, we are serving people. Sometimes that service looks like standing at a door, sometimes directing traffic or responding to an emergency. But sometimes it simply looks like listening to someone who finally worked up the courage to say, "I'm scared." If I could go back and talk to the version of myself before I joined the safety ministry, I'm not sure I would tell him very much about tactics or equipment. I'd probably tell him not to be afraid to share what he knows. Early on, one of our safety team leaders stepped away, and I considered stepping into a larger leadership role. I held back because I was worried about the amount of responsibility that came with it. Looking back, I wish I hadn't been so afraid of that responsibility, but I also don't think I was ready. At the time, I still had some growing to do. Not professionally, spiritually. Leadership isn't only about knowledge or experience, it's also about maturity, humility, and learning to serve people well. Today, when I look back over the past several years, I realize I didn't just learn how to lead a safety ministry. The ministry shaped me too. It taught me that compassion and preparedness belong together. It taught me that protecting people starts long before the emergency happens. And it taught me that the most important part of church safety isn't the security, it's the people.
Fear you are not welcome here.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Sanctuary Peacemakers. If today's conversation added value, be sure to tune in next week as we continue equipping and encouraging those who serve and protect houses of worship. A special thanks to Haley Jones for granting permission to use her song Not Today as our introduction, and to Lesley Jones for allowing us to use the song Sound Mind as our outro music. As always, y'all stay safe and y'all stay blessed.